Well, hello. I'm Dr. Ayleen, and this is Medicine Walk. And for those of you who are listening in on Blog Talk Radio, it's Healing House Radio. So I hope that everyone is, or everyone enjoyed, or at least on YouTube, I hope that everyone enjoyed the new intro. And I am so excited to be able to start, kind of changing things and shifting things and really being able to, have it go to that next level. And that is like really exciting for me. And you may hear animals around here. I'm here at home. And I wanted to, and for those of you who are listening in on Blog Talk Radio, please check out the YouTube link, and you can, that'll take you to my YouTube channel, and check that out because I'm really proud of what it is that I'm been able to put together there. So, thank you for joining me, and I want to thank my two of my patrons, Kathleen and Andrew, and I'm thanking them because it's through their sponsoring of my channel that I'm able to get, I was able to get a new camera, and so I also want to thank my son Jason for getting me a new laptop. And so, it's really all about trying to move the channel up and to produce something that is, gets better and better for you guys. So, let's head on. So the September topic, which was a request for me to cover this information, is on enlightenment. And that request came from Kathleen. And so I wanted to, actually, out of all the topics that I cover, this is probably the one that I would consider, say, the most controversial, because of the fact that enlightenment is unique for each and every person. And when you have basically the idea of the ultimate expression of yourself, the ultimate expression of your spiritual life and whatever, that's very personal, and it's tough to define. And usually in this first episode, we define our terms, and so that way we're all kind of starting off on the same sheet of music. And it is interesting because if you ask one person what their definition of enlightenment is, it'll be different from someone else's. So it may be that some people define it as, a full encompassing love of everything and everyone, and that you're in that place of perfect peace and perfect serenity. And others may view it as a complete detachment from everything and everyone, and you are in such a state of oneness that, well, basically you become disconnected from everything. And so, you're just completely separate from the realities of the world. So, oh, hush, Sam. So the idea that it could be anywhere on that spectrum, your perception and your idea as to what your sense of enlightenment is. So if you're thinking about, the idea that you want to become enlightened, first it is about, what do you mean? And so each week we're going to be looking at a question regarding enlightenment. So the first question is, what does enlightenment mean to you? What would that look like for you? How would that present in your world? The idea that you would be transcended in some way. Well, what are you transcending to? If you are, kind of view yourself in one way, and you're here on one end as you are, and then somewhere down here is this perfected version of yourself, then, what is it that has you here and not here? And that can be a very tricky and very involved question. And it's also one where you have to go into your own heart. You have to go into your own mind, because in order to answer that question of how do you get from here to here, that means that you're going to have to take some very good, deep, hard looks at, what's going on within you, what it is that is, a part of your being that you feel. I mean, and it may be that someone else wouldn't think that. It's like, no, you're wonderful, you're great. But whatever it is within yourself that you feel is separating you from that ultimate expression, well, then that means that you're going to need to take a look at that. It means that you have to really be able to consciously explore those parts of yourself that, say, you feel is keeping you from whatever that ultimate expression is. And the thing is, you have to be able to view that in a loving way. You have to be able to take away all judgment and take a look at those parts of yourself and find your balance, find your center, and, be able to really explore that. And that can be very difficult. Now, there are a lot of people out there, and there are a lot of teachers who will say they can teach you enlightenment. And if you find one that you resonate with, hello, Luna. If you find one that you resonate with, that's great. And if that works for you, that's wonderful. But the thing is that what they're teaching you is their definition of enlightenment. They're teaching you and they're showing you what it is that they believe. The question is, what do you believe? What's true for you? And that's where the heart of enlightenment is. It's about you. It's about your journey. It's about what it is that you feel is right for you. And, that can take a long time to figure out. That can take a lot of meditation. It can take a lot of soul searching, because basically, in a way, you're deconstructing yourself, looking at all those pieces and then trying to reassemble it into this being that you aspire to be. So before, you feel that, you need to do that, See, that's a fascinating thing about cats. Cats never worry about it. Enlightenment. They don't worry about how they look. They don't worry about how they, what anybody thinks of them. All they know is that they're a cat and they should get attention whenever they want it. So, Luna. See, this is why I normally don't tape at home. Because at that moment, suddenly, my animals all want my attention. But, anyway, so the idea that it is someone else's perspective on what enlightenment is. And if you have not defined what that is for yourself, it makes it tricky when somebody else defines it for you. Because ultimately, this is the greatest expression of enlightenment, is being absolutely true to the core of who you are, and learning the core of who you are, and then finding absolute love and acceptance and peace with the core of who you are. So when we have an opportunity to explore our own spirit, that can be quite a journey. And in my mind, and, there may be those who have issue with this, as far as I'm concerned, I'm really not interested in becoming enlightened. I mean, not in this lifetime. For me, enlightenment comes after I finish learning everything that I have to learn. Every way that I can grow here. Every opportunity that I have to fulfill my life purpose. And once I've done that, and once I've learned all this cool stuff, and once I've, had a chance to experience all the things that I can experience, then I move out of this life, and then I move into enlightenment. And, however that works for you, maybe you embrace being able to be enlightened in this life. It's a work. And you can give away all your possessions and move on to a mountaintop or go to a monastery somewhere and spend the next 10, 20 years figuring that out. And if that works for you, if that's your path, good luck. Have fun. It's, to me, because of the fact that I know that enlightenment ultimately is whatever I perceive it to be, then I can create it at any point. And I really don't know the value of having a title. And titles are really cool. It helps kind of frame who we are and, how we walk in this world, how we relate to other people. I mean, one of the questions we're going to be looking at is, okay, you're enlightened, now what? It really is about what you want to do with it. What is your attachment? And if the whole goal of being enlightened is that you lose all your attachments, well, then that includes the attachment to being enlightened. I've had people who would ask me, what it is what I consider, the point that I would know I was enlightened. And my answer is, I'll know I'm enlightened when the answer doesn't matter. When I'm really not concerned about being enlightened or not. Because I think that is the core of it. I think that does have a point where part of enlightenment is losing your attachment to even the idea that you have reached enlightenment. If you are absolutely at peace with who you are, what you are, where you are in that moment, I would call that enlightenment. And it doesn't mean that it has to be a peace that somebody else agrees with. It could be that, it's something that doesn't resonate with anyone else but you. But if you're at peace with it, if you're in that lovely, wonderful place of acceptance, yeah, then I would say that you are enlightened. Yeah, there are many traditions that will hold, different ways to look at enlightenment. And when you kind of line them all up, it's usually about a state of being that creates oneness with a sense of the universe or the universal consciousness. And whatever definition that holds is a part of what it is that people are looking for. So let's say that, you follow a Buddhist tradition of the idea of enlightenment. Well, then you would need to go and train with the Buddhists and study that and look at that and follow those traditions, and that will tell you when you've reached that point of enlightenment. And it will be through a lifetime of study. Often, I find it very surprising, that there's a sense of urgency. And often people feel that sense of urgency. And it's difficult because when, you feel that sense of rush, and yes, that you get a spiritual hit, something happens, and then suddenly you are just obsessed. And that's what you want, and that's what you're focused on. You don't want to do anything else. You don't want to think about anything else. All you want to think about is that. Really, Luna? Really? All you want to think about is having, that moment with spirit, or where you feel that oneness. Or maybe in a meditation, you just got a spark of it. You got like a tiny bit of it, and then it was gone. And it's like, no, I want it back, I want it back. So the idea that if you can't have it right in that little package with the bow on it and with a nice big label, enlightenment, Sometimes people get disappointed. Sometimes they get discouraged. The search for enlightenment is it can be as simple or as complex as your decision as to what enlightenment is. If your definition of enlightenment is you're just happy, okay, that's one path and that's one way, and then you find that way to be as happy as you want for as long as you can. To some, which is more in alignment with what I believe, it's about being able to be content and finding the good in whatever situation you're in and being okay with it. There's a Zen saying that when you have learned to love hell, you will always be in heaven. So the idea behind that is that once you can accept any situation in your life peacefully and understand, now that doesn't mean it doesn't suck. My saying, life is fun until it isn't, and it sucks until it doesn't. And so you can acknowledge that a situation sucks, and yet still be able to say, and I know this is temporary, I know I will move through it, and I know I will be stronger on the other side of it, and therefore you can navigate it peacefully. To some, that's enlightenment. Now, if your definition of enlightenment is the ability to, astrally project and walk to other dimensional worlds, or to be able to meditate and not require food or water for, weeks or months on end, that's a different level of enlightenment. And good luck with that. I think that there are certain things that people kind of set up as far as what they think that ultimate expression of enlightenment means. So the idea that it can be whatever you want it to be. You just have to be clear on what you expect. What is it that you believe that experience will give you? To achieve that, or once you do achieve it, how is that going to change your life? How do you believe that's going to change your life? If you believe that it's going to mean that you're never unhappy, well, maybe, but it's going to take a very long time for you to be able to completely get rid of being unhappy, because being unhappy, just like being happy, is a part of the human condition. Even if it's for a split second of, oh man, but you still have to find that way. You still have to find that opportunity to find balance with what it is that you're dealing with. So it doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't mean at all that you should, if I can't give up, if I'm not going to be able to 100% give up being angry ever again in this lifetime, I'm not going to try for it. Because that's the whole point. And if enlightenment is the destination, the important part of it is the journey that gets you there. So don't get wrapped up in, well, if I can't achieve that, then nothing. Because that's not true. Every spiritual practice has the opportunity to grow. It has the opportunity for you to be able to, advance and to learn things about yourself, because that's what spiritual work is, pretty much, about your ability to learn about yourself, about your ability to learn your connection to everything else. Now, for me, it's a very strong connection through nature and the natural world and the stars and everything out there. And I am blessed to be able to live in a cabin in the woods, surrounded by trees, near a river, so I can have that experience anytime I'm home. And I can be able to work with that anytime that I'm here. And so it makes it a very nice thing, an easy thing for me. But nature is my connection. Now, maybe sacred geometry is your connection. And so you can, search down that path if you want. Maybe nature isn't your thing. So figuring out what's the way that you get there? What's your doorway? My doorway is nature and the elements. Somebody else's doorway could be something different. So the point is that you find your doorway, you find your way of doing this, and then you run with that. So by creating the framework for what it is that enlightenment means to you, means that you can then figure out, okay, if I know what enlightenment looks like to me and for me, if I know that, then what I can do is I can then figure out what is it in my life that is keeping me from reaching that. Because unless you know what it is your destination is going to be, you can't figure out what you need to do to get there. So figuring that, okay, if I want to be able to, have absolute peace and resonance and harmony with all creatures and everything in humanity, well, you need to practice. You would practice going into that space. Maybe if it's just for 5 minutes, going to your happy place. And then, you rest, and then, you practice it for 5 more minutes. And then you practice it for 10 minutes. And, when you kind of got a handle on going to your happy place, then go to a mall and walk from one end of the mall to the other end and say, okay, I am going to stay in my happy place until I get to the other end of the mall. And considering that there are people there and all of that, see, because that's the other thing. Whatever level of enlightenment you want, it's going to ultimately have to involve other people. It's going to have to involve, the populace. Unless you're planning on going and, going away and being all enlightened by yourself. Which, cats could probably do it. To just be in that place of separation. So when you, I'm trying to do the recording and this at the same time. So when you can stay in that, and it's practice and practice and practice, and you go, talk to somebody who normally agitates you. A lot of people say that, it's like, wow, you can talk to anybody. They can say things that, you disagree with, and, you just kind of let it go and you hear them out. And it's like, well, yeah, because I'm not invested. I'm invested because I'm listening to them. But I know that they will not change what it is that I feel and what it is if my feelings are opposed to theirs. I can listen to somebody and hear them out and go, okay. But that doesn't change what I feel. It doesn't change how I'm, perceiving the world. So that way it doesn't really matter to me. If they love it, I love it for them. But it doesn't have to be my path or what I take on. So, that is I don't consider that enlightenment at all. I consider that just being able to listen and be, not attached to a story. And really, the core of enlightenment, to me, is the ability to completely give up stories. To give up, the what-ifs or coulda, woulda, coulda, shouldas. So, the idea that you can just be autonomous. And so, those are my views. You'll figure out yours. And that's the whole point, is that you figure out yours. So, consider the first question out of this, which is, what is enlightenment to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? If you were enlightened, or, let's say you were enlightened, what would your responses to things be? How would you react to, different situations? And once you really define that for yourself, then you go into, okay, how do I reach that? What needs to shift inside of me for me to be able to embrace that and to be able to see that and to be able to become that? So, yeah, take your time. You know, this, if you're really, really determined to find that point of enlightenment and really find your own and not just take on what somebody else says. Everybody's got an opinion about this. And if you can take on your own enlightenment and, you know, be responsible for it, to manage it in your way, then that's what you need to do. And that's where you start, is by figuring out what is your destination. And really getting as specific as you possibly can. And in order to do that, you're going to have to go inside and really take a look at what it is that you envision that perfect self to be, that perfect spiritual self. And I'd recommend you write it down, because journaling, I would say, would probably be a very good thing for you to do. So, alright, step 1, week 1 homework. What is enlightenment to you? And if you like, you can post it in the comments, and we can talk a little bit about that. So, I'm only in the chat room on the premiere of the episodes. So, after that, you can leave comments. You can join my Facebook group, Medicine Walk with Dr. Ayleen. And you can also reach me through Twitter. And the links for those are in the description. And if you appreciate this, if you're interested in this topic or any of the other topics that I've done, then you can like this video, you can share it, and you can subscribe, because it's always cool to see the community grow. So, until next time, I wish you balance, and I wish you blessings from my heart to yours. Love you, and class dismissed.